Well, good morning and thanks for joining us again. This is Newspaper Review. Yes, I did say joining us again because it's a spillover of the VOP This Morning show. I am Moses Humphrey. And today I have with me Dele Fanimo. He stays back, as promised, from VOP This Morning. Good morning to you once again.
Good morning, Moses.
Once again. Oh, well.
Home alone.
Home alone, as it were. You know, my friends have abandoned me. But thank you for saying they have decamped, but they will come back home.
Okay.
This is home.
Okay.
Well, let's look at a few stories from the papers now. We have, some of these papers. Okay. Well, we'll look at, let's put up the Guardian newspaper. You have a few headlines from the Guardian newspaper. So let's have that one on the screen. Amid weak social services, states stake nearly 200 billion naira renovations. All right. Those are the headlines there. We do have a few other headlines. Damagum, PDP, NWC. All right. Also from the Guardian, there are other headlines there. 17 soldiers killed. All right, 17 soldiers killed in Niger. And also some headlines. Just trying to see some of these headlines here. Okay, yes, I have it now. 17 soldiers killed in Niger as troops foil attack. New tax regime underway as Tinubu signs bills into law today. Obedient ADA 108 others apply to INEC for registration. All right. And the bold headline there, amid weak social services, states stake nearly 200 billion naira on renovations. And the president is still doing some commissioning. Over 91% of FX liquidity outside formal banking system, APCON claims. FG to hold manufacturers, importers responsible for plastic pollution. Nigeria can make progress without efficient civil service, says Alake. And there's a breakdown. No, I'll take that one again. I'll take it again. There's a breakdown here of the banner headline. Amid weak social services, states spending so much as 200 billion naira on renovations. All right, that's that breakdown. Oh well, looking at the pictorial here, according to the Guardian, it says 3 states may spend 122.7 billion naira on office renovations in 3 years. States to spend 22% of budget on health, education, 6 trillion naira allocation to 2 critical growth sectors. Governors may dip hands in capital votes to fund vanities. All right. Over 91% of FX liquidity. Okay, that one you wanted me to take again. Nigeria can't make progress without efficient civil service, says Alake. And then some of the headlines here. Minister seeks alignment of military training with national security objectives. Damagum, PDP, NWC on war path over Anyanwu's reinstatement. NEC meeting. Even Wike spoke out on this one. Said, look, Damagum, you can't force Anyanwu on the people. Some will say it's all politics. But, these are the headlines here. Let's start off with the tax regime, the new tax regime underway as Tinubu signs bills into law today. But that one, long in the waiting, long debated. And finally, today, signatures will be appended. What's your reaction?
Well, I'm not surprised and I'm not taken aback because I recall that when this issue of tax reform came up, and Udumi was the first person to attack those bills, I said, look, beyond whatever Udumi has said, that this will sail through. It's just a matter of time. Because it will do us a lot of good to have this kind of reforms. It's no longer business as usual. Now, the various state governors would have to guard their loins now. It's not a question of just sitting back in your various government houses and begin to count days for federal allocation to drop. You just send your commissioner to Abuja and pick money, and then you start spending. Now you have to really develop and even double up on your IGR for you to sustain your state with the new tax reform. And also, more people, particularly the rich, they never pay taxes.
Drawn into it this time around.
But they will be drawn into it.
Indeed.
And then there's going to be a common pool.
But you know, implementation is always an issue here.
See, we are not saying it's going to be a perfect implementation process. But let's even start.
Okay.
It will now be a question of the will to do it. When Marwa was leaving Lagos State, for instance, the IGR of Lagos State was hovering between 550 and 600 million naira per month. But when Tinubu administration came, within 6 months, it peaked at about 3.5 billion naira. Today, Lagos State revenue is over 100 billion per month.
So you see him replicating that at the national
Somehow. Those days, before the new tax regime came to Lagos State, I was really into it, and I knew what was happening. You see, tax was not automated. At that time, if you are given a bill of, say, 500,000 naira, if you can bribe your way through, you can pay 50,000 naira, and only 10,000 naira or 20,000 naira will be remitted to the account. But today, right on the table of the governor of Lagos State, or the finance commissioner, or the permanent secretary minister of finance, or Accountant General's office, you can walk in and they just punch the buttons and you get your tax bill. And if you have not paid, it's not a question of just like the licensing now. If you evade renewal of your papers for 3-4 years, the day you go back to say, I want to pay, they're not going to start from that year you came to register. They'll go back in time and tell you that, look, you have not renewed your papers in the last 3 years. And that's the beauty of automation. And that's what is coming on board now. And because some people are averse to paying taxes, you and I, we are compelled to pay taxes because it's deducted from our salary. From source.
Indeed.
But people that do businesses in millions, in trillions, in billions, they don't pay taxes.
Now, how will this affect those that are given tax holidays?
Yes. You see, now businesses are done using banking transactions.
Okay.
So there's no way you could lie. If somebody, you get a contract, for instance, of 200,000 naira, it is automatic that you have to pay something out of this 200,000 naira. You will be debited and you are compelled to pay. Unlike before, where the taxman, do you see all these taxmen around the Lagos these days? No. The only time you see them around is when you default and they cannot capture you through your NIN, through your BVN. So it makes it easier. And we are gradually moving towards the era of real convergence of data. I foresee a situation in the next 2-3 years where all these, you want to get license, you come and capture. You want to do anything, you come and capture. You want to register for your NIN, you come and capture.
Okay, you foresee a situation whereby
there will be a convergence of all this. So at the press of a button, who is Moses Humphrey,
how
it will come.
How far into the future?
How much tax have you paid? How much tax have you evaded? It will come.
How far into the future will that be? Now, it's interesting that you also talked about this. I know there was a time I had a little run-in with one of the enforcement agencies in Lagos. I think VIO. Okay. And then my car was impounded. Then I was asked to pay a certain amount of money for some infraction, and it was cumbersome. All right, the process was really stressful because I had to go to a particular bank to make the payment and then go to where their office was. It was a distance, far apart. And I remember while trying to sort all of that out, the question of whether I'm a taxpayer came up.
Yeah.
And I said, look, yes, I'm a taxpayer. My organization, the organization I worked with at the time,
deducts your tax at
deducts at source. And they said, no. That's federal because the organization is a federal agency.
Okay.
That's federal. We are talking about Lagos state tax, and it became a problem. Like, if the federal deducts, should I deduct from my own money again and pay to Lagos state? No, that should be, you should find a way to sort that out. How do you think they will be able to? Because
they can and they will. They will. Now they are consolidating taxes, so it's not going to be. It's going to be a shift from the era of multiple taxation, where if you move from one local government to the other, somebody will stop you and say, yes, you have only paid for Shomolu, you have not paid for Ikeja. All those things would naturally come to an end. But the essence of this is, if your business runs lower than 50 in terms of turnover, million naira in a year, you are exempted.
You're exempted.
You understand? Unlike before, even if you make turnover of 10 million, you will be taxed. But somebody who has made over 2 trillion turnover because he has somebody up there will not be taxed.
Anyway, it will be.
But let's see how it pans out.
Let's see how it pans out. Yes, because implementation is always a problem.
Yes, I agree with you.
I do believe that with the implementation should not be a problem in this regard. So let's go to another story now. This is I'd like to go deeper into this particular story. The headline here is 17 soldiers killed in Niger as troops foil attack. That's the headline. And yes, so when you flip the pages, it's right there. The writers to that story, Senate condemns Benue Plateau massacres, demands justice, end to bloodshed. Stop cutting ribbons. Nigeria is at war. Obi tells Tinubu. That's the writer to that story.
I don't understand that. Stop cutting ribbon.
The president is commissioning him. He has just continued.
Okay.
He has continued the scale of commissioning and all of that, regardless of the fact that now some will argue that he doesn't really have to be at every place where there is a massacre or a disaster or where people are being killed. He doesn't have to be at every spot. But then, wouldn't it show a level of what's the word I'm looking for? Wouldn't it show a level of compassion? Empathy. Yes, thank you very much. That's the word I was looking for. If the president decides that, look, okay, let me slow down on the scheduled commissioning. I know this commissioning were scheduled before now. Let me slow down on this. Let's push this back a little bit. Let me talk to the governors in states that have had, crisis, or let me just do something that will make Nigerians see you as one who cares. But the president, the only one he did was to push back the Kaduna commissioning and went to Benue and back to Abuja to commission more things, and in Nasarawa the other day, and now he's back in Abuja again. So the president has just gone ahead, and for each commissioning, he gives the impression that yes, democracy is working because we are commissioning roads and bridges and structures.
You know, there are two sides to this. Honestly, from the emotive part of me, I feel that the president, even other governors, in empathy with those states that have been having issues with insecurity, should have slowed down and let's concentrate more on finding solutions to insecurity. And at the same time, it's unfortunate that human lives had been reduced to statistics. That's why we are not really bothered. It's like humanity in us is dead.
Quite unfortunate.
Because I imagine somebody seeing 200 lifeless bodies who were likely to have been buried en masse. And then I began to conjure in my brain that these are people that their graves are not likely to be marked. A whole era is gone forever. The children of these people cannot do memorial visit to their father or mother's grave. These children that would have likely become the governor of this state, this particular state, had been cut down.
Or at least contributors. They should have contributed one thing or the other.
If you factor all this, that is, look, commissioning can wait. You still have about 2 years. Keep this project. And as a matter of fact,
so, but this is the emotive use.
Why? Yeah, this is my emotive feeling. But the other one, which resides within the presence of the politician, is if, Aneke said, things fall apart, that if this bird would be flying without perching, then I should be able to shoot.
Without aiming.
Without aiming, So what that means is, I'm just hazarding a guess.
Should continue.
I'm just hazarding a guess from the point of a politician.
Okay.
I am not one. I'm sure what they will say is that, look, after all, these people had gone, and then life continues.
Let's move on.
We have to do what we have sworn to do, and then we must continue to show more so that politicking, even if it's not campaign as dictated by electoral law, politicking has started, and nobody wants to be caught napping in the process of selling their achievements to the electorate. But that does not remove the fact that if I were the president, I won't commission for now. At least for the next 21 days, I would commission. And the emphasis will be on how to mitigate this crisis and ensure that Nigerians live. Imagine a councillor that is losing 200 voters in just one attack. Imagine a governor that...
Imagine the military. Imagine the military.
Losing
17
soldiers. Those days when we were very young, when we were reading James Early Chase, you can't kill a policeman and not get the consequence. In fact, most criminals run away from the police because they don't want an encounter that will make a policeman fall.
Yes.
That was the impression we got. And that's what the mindset we go with. But these days, non-state actors, criminals, they kill soldiers. Who are you to
because they know if you
imagine killing a soldier?
They will come after you. The entire squad, the entire unit
in fact,
will come after you.
When I was growing up in the barracks, the slogan is, kill a soldier, you find trouble with a troop. But kill a major, you find trouble with the nation. But have you not seen where they have killed colonels, lieutenant colonels,
high-ranking
majors,
officers?
high-ranking officers. So it's something that bothers me and gives me a lot of concern.
And it's something that should bother all
every
Nigerians. All Nigerians.
All Nigerians.
Oh, well, let's look at this story here. Senate sparks tension with confirmation of Cross River Indigene as RCEC boss. Confirms Tinubu's nominees for boards of 4 Rivers agencies. Let's go a little into this story for clarity. In a charged and deeply, okay, I think it's an editorial. Okay, well, we hear that Dr. Michael, the Cross River State Indigene, Dr. Michael Ode, has been confirmed as the chairman of the River State Independent Electoral Commission, RCEC, a decision that triggered fierce pushback from lawmakers. It also confirmed President Bola Tinubu's nominees for key positions across 4 agencies in Rivers. The confirmation followed the presentation of the screening report by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Emergency Rule in Rivers, Opeyemi Bamidele, during plenary. Now, we hear that Ode was, whose nomination came under the Emergency Administration Rule in Rivers State. Okay, speaks about some others. So some will say that the president seems to have, without apologies to anybody, taken over the governance of Rivers State, and he's putting people, his own people. Local government elections are underway, and regardless of the pushback, regardless of the fact that people didn't want a non-indigene of Rivers State to head the RCEC, the president seems to be sticking to his guns. That this is what I want, this is what it has to be. And also, the president is nominating boards of agencies in Rivers State. I hate to ask the question, but it's on my lips anyway. What is this? Is this a takeover?
You see, let me tell you.
And we have allowed this to continue.
In law, if you are not the actual perpetrator of a crime, if you aid and abet that crime, you'll be given equal measure as the person that commits the crime. Because what the law recognizes is that you are an enabler of that crime. Perhaps if you had not supported that main criminal, he may not have succeeded in committing that crime. For instance, somebody wants to commit armed robbery, he doesn't have a gun, and you procure a gun for that person. You have enabled that person to commit this crime. What I'm saying in essence is, why would the Senate approve and then come back to tell us that this is what they have done? The law of separation of power gives the legislative arm the power to resist the excesses of the executive. But what we see here, the last time we had this dissenting view between the legislative arm and the executive arm was during Saraki's Senate presidency, which was also as a result of an ambush on Buhari in his first term in 2015. And politicians are quick to learn lessons from their predecessor. And so a new president would rather put a pliant set of people. How would you expect Opeyemi Bamidele, that was once commissioner in Lagos, that was propped up by Tinubu, to look Tinubu in the face and say, no, sir, we are not going to allow this to pass? How would you expect an Akpabio to stay on the other side and say, look, this thing cannot fly, knowing its antecedents and knowing that he has the alpha dog, the attack dog, the Rottweiler in EFCC, waiting to bring down his neck. So this is what we have seen, and this is what is playing out. Unfortunately, the people that are saddled with the responsibility of putting a check and applying brakes are the ones that are oiling the wheel to smoothen its speed, to increase the speed. How would you, for me, as a matter of fact, this one, I have a take on it. The INEC chairmanship, what bothers me is the integrity of whoever is appointed and not where that person comes from. You understand? It's an emergency situation. But even when we have indigenes of such states across Nigeria as the State Independent Electoral Commission chairman, we see massive fraud. Show me a state where a local government, because they are supposed to conduct only local government elections. Show me a state where local government election is conducted and then they route the incumbent governor and party in that state. I've not seen one since the advent of the Fourth Republic. So they only go there to write figures. The only slight exception was explained in Akwa Ibom when somebody who scored 7,000 became the chairmanship candidate and the winner of that election against somebody who scored over 50,000 votes. And the only explanation we got was that we can't afford to disgrace our Senate president because it comes from that.
I think he scored about 600 and something votes against a person that scored about 5,000 votes. Yeah, so that was like now, a giveaway.
Exactly. So since when have we started giving away elections and offices? This is not an appointment. This is an elective office. So what we are saying now is, what if the man comes to conduct election and he makes it fair and free?
But
and
let's be honest. Do you think when such an individual is appointed and certain parties have an interest in the result of that election, do you think that individual will be free and fair?
Have you ever seen any election since 1993 that has been fair and fair? No. I've not seen one. But it's just unfortunate that whichever way we look at it, it was Fubara that played into the hands of these people. Perhaps if Fubara had been in the saddle, there's no way somebody from another state will come and emerge as
so he should have allowed himself to be impeached. Is that what you're saying? He should have allowed himself to be impeached.
How?
They were heading towards impeachment. They were talking about impeachment. It was a stalemate
at that time, and what he is doing now, appeasing the gods, the ancestors. Perhaps if you had taken that route at that time, it may not have been impeached.
Was it 7 or 8 point agenda at that time? Did not work in his favor. I mean, we saw it.
And are you sure that he's not coming back to come and implement this 7 point or 8 point agenda?
Well, at this point, anything is possible.
Because the man, I'm disappointed in him. You know why? Must you be a governor at all costs?
So what would you have expected him to do?
Look, nobody will give me that kind of condition when I was contesting, like Wike gave him, and I would say, yes, I won't.
Okay, so he shouldn't have even accepted in the first place.
He shouldn't have accepted in the first place.
Okay. You're not speaking as like a politician now.
That's why I said I'm not one.
Okay. All right, then. Oh, well, let's look at a few other headlines here. We've seen some defections. It's a statement, you see, and they make statements like this, and it's troubling. Neda Imasuen of the Labour Party has defected to, the APC officially. And Senator Akpabio is quoted as saying, "You shall no longer labor in vain." He tells Imasuen. Okay. Well, you might react if you want to, or let's just go to another. Yes, we had this conversation yesterday. The headline here, I mean, it's in the pages of The Guardian. It says, Obi laments illegal, in quote, demolition of brothers' property in Lagos. It's a total shame, says road survivor Deji Adeyanju. Now, you sent me a few materials from that demolition, but let's talk about it here.
You see, for me, I think we don't have to be hasty in taking position in things like this. I recall that yesterday when we were talking about this, and I said it could be a private affair.
Yes, you did. But
And
you know, I
it
also
turned
recall.
out from the
I also
documents-
recall saying that look, nobody have mentioned the state in all of this. Nobody mentioned that it was the state.
You see, no, somebody was there yesterday talking about vendetta. He used that word, vendetta. And that presupposes that somebody somewhere is just hitting hard on somebody. Now, from all the documents that were pushed, that I also shared with you, it only showed that there had been a dispute, I think since 2023, over this property by one Deborah. I've forgotten the surname.
Yes. I remember the first name.
This Deborah was the one that had C of O to that property. And it is trite in law that whoever owns the land owns the property. The best you could do is to take away your property if the court says this person is the rightful owner of that property.
Of the land.
Of the land. So even if you build 35-story building in a land, if you are not the original owner of the land, the best you could do is to take away your 35-story building. And in all of this, one thing about the law is if there's a judgment against you and you allow it without taking steps to challenge it in an appellate court, that judgment cannot be vacated by a judge of coordinate jurisdiction. The only thing that you can do, and that is if you are filing an appeal in an appellate court, you file stay of execution. That is, that order cannot be carried out until the appeal is determined, and a judge can grant you that right. Now, from the documents, because I went into it and I started asking questions, and I was sent those documents. I think it's about 6 or 8 pages that I sent to you. You saw the C of O of that Deborah. You saw
but
the lawyer's
letter.
Yesterday,
for the optics, regardless of whether it's an individual, and the individual with a court order decided to demolish a property without allowing the occupants to even take anything out, without allowing reasoning to play a role, for the optics, it looks bad.
Yes, when you want to look at it from an emotional point of view.
No, I'm not being emotional.
Let me explain to you. When I was the MD of leadership, somebody, a senator, a sitting senator, somebody wrote a story against him that he is not the father of his children, that is not fertile to be a father of his children, and that his father fathered those children. There was no proof. The senator went to court, challenged it, and he won. He got 250 million naira damages against my company. The company's secretary, the lawyer, sat on it, never challenged. The man went back to court and filed for enforcement of that judgment. And the lawyer didn't do anything. Shortly when I came, I was just barely 2 months old in that company when they came for enforcement. It was like the whole world was going to crumble at that time, on that day. They came with thugs because they were expecting that there could be resistance from the workers. They came with police, fully armed, and they came with bailiff. Bailiff is supposed to enforce the judgment. And they destroyed so many things, carted away our critical asset, we couldn't do anything about it at that point. So, what was supposed to be done was left undone. And the owner wants to take possession of his property. If you find yourself in that position and you approach your lawyer, this process is what the lawyer will tell you to do. And once you exhaust all these processes, whatever you do is within the law. I am sure that that man or that woman that owns that property wouldn't have gone there without law enforcement and belief to effect that. I think the plausible thing that would have happened is the moment this woman files this case and you know that she has the CFO, you don't have it, and you are not a tenant, then the plausible thing would have been to just go and meet this woman and resolve this matter. She could as well. Have you not seen a whole street where they get judgment against the original claimant to that street? And then the new owner comes and says, look, you have two choices. Either you come and negotiate with the new owner or you remove your property from that street. And those who are ready to comply, they will go back and renew their deal with the new owners, and they will be left off the hook. And those who are not ready to do, they will be bulldozer and bulldoze their property. I've seen it happen many times. So in this case, I suspect that that was what happened.
But it's we can't rule out. We can't rule out the place of certain individuals, probably with some state authority, prompting the woman in question to go ahead. We can't rule that fact out. You may not want to accept it.
That's conspiracy theory.
Well, you can call it that, but it can't be ruled out. It can't be ruled out because the fact of the matter still stands. According to Desjardins Yoju, and I align my thoughts with his on this one. I don't always agree with him.
This is my opinion.
Agreed. It's fine. My opinion too.
That's your opinion too.
Is that regardless of whatever the case may have been, you should have allowed the occupant, even if you have a court order, even if it's at that moment, as you're taking down some parts of the building, allow them to move out critical furniture, critical furniture, critical properties. You don't bring down the entire brick and mortar on properties. It's double damage because the money spent on erecting the house is gone, money spent on acquiring the properties gone if the properties are destroyed. So it's double damage. I will not, considering the environment that we live in, I'm not going to rule out the fact that certain individuals within the corridors of power may have prompted, giving the thumbs up, go ahead, we are behind you, nothing is going to happen. I will not rule that fact out. And it's really unfortunate. Yeah, this is where we have gotten to. We're talking earlier in the day about landlord and tenant issues. Landlord having the right to take the roof off the tenant's house or throw the tenant out.
We're not getting what I'm
saying. I didn't get that. Okay.
What I told you.
Yes.
What I told you is that landlord, having exhausted the processes of the court, can remove your property from his house and throw it to the open.
But in times past, we used to see cases where when a tenant falters, maybe in payment, the landlord could just take the roof off, and
some people have been punished for that.
Exactly my point.
But this is a different scenario. In the case of a tenant, if you have exhausted all the processes in the court and you have judgment against your tenant, the bailiff will come and the law enforcement, they will pack everything that belongs to him and throw it to the street. If he can salvage it, fine. Okay. And there is no policeman, there is no court that will hold that landlord responsible for doing that.
Packing
it is the
properties and putting out there would not have been so much of a problem for me. Packing those properties and putting them out there. You could bring, police and special SSS officers or whatever. You can bring thugs. You can take properties out, but don't bring the building down on the properties.
Well, for me, while I would not want to go into the details of that because I was not there physically and I didn't do any assessment of it. But the only area where I felt concerned is that how can somebody take laws into his hand and demolish another person's property without cause? And I asked questions to the extent that I even called some of my places where I've worked before. And those were the places I got all the information I passed on to you.
Okay. Now let's end with this story. It's on the back page. It's sports. I saw this one yesterday, and I bit my finger, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, Nigeria, my country." Super Eagles, 94 squad.
Stevie Keshi is dead.
Stevie Keshi is dead.
And so,
Rashidi Yakini
is dead.
Rashidi Yakini is dead.
Yes.
Stephen Keshi is dead. A few others too have died.
Yeah.
And now they are getting the houses.
34 years after. No, 31 years
31 years after.
It doesn't, you see, when you see all this, you are inadvertently removing patriotism from those living.
Exactly.
Now,
well, let me read the story for the benefit of those that may not be aware. It's 31 years after federal government rewards victorious 94 Super Eagles with houses. Evan Ikoku, others elated, those that are still alive, elated. Those that are dead, their children or family members were the ones that got the keys to the apartments.
The unfortunate part of it is that Rashidi Yakini, for instance.
Rashidi Yakini was spectacular.
And then he died in penury. Up till today, 34 years after, we have not produced a squad as complete as that 94 squad. As a matter of fact, do you know that that squad that lost to Italy in the round of 16 was the reason why I stopped attaching emotion to any club till date. And I removed myself psychologically completely from watching matches. Because the loss of that match almost cost me my life.
Roberto Baggio.
I'm telling you. It almost cost me my life. I didn't take any bet, but I was happy that if this squad could go beyond the round of 16 and get to the quarterfinals, there is no stopping us. And Spain that we defeated.
And
in the opening round.
The crux of it is even the appreciation from the federal government is coming way too late. Way too late. Way too late.
It has reduced whatever potency this would give to those who are coming behind.
And like you said,
to nothing.
Patriotism has been whittled down with things like this because Saudi
Arabia squad won a match in World Cup, and they almost gave each of the players a private jet. Instantly, holiday was declared in Saudi Arabia. Yet, these guys, if you recall, their preparation was shaky.
And they still had a
during the qualifying matches, they were wearing tracksuit cut to shorts because the protocol department couldn't bring their jersey on time. Look.
Oh well. Well, thank you very much. It's on this very sorry note, a very pathetic note. I just hope Nigerians, athletes, especially in Nigeria, will have something to be patriotic about. But it's really difficult to compel people to, give their sweat and blood to the nation if appreciation comes like this. I mean, a child born in 1995 is already 30 years old. He's already a mother,
of course,
at this time. It's very unfortunate, but here we are, 31 years after promises were made. Our heroes, heroes receiving their gifts. Well, what does the former anthem says? The labor of our heroes past shall not be in vain. And we won't say this one is in vain because their family members are the ones benefiting from it now.
Unfortunately, Rashidi had no family left to take over this.
Now, don't make me feel. Don't make me emotional. Don't make me emotional. Well, thank you very much, Dele Fanimo, for your contribution on newspaper
Always
review.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it on the show. On behalf of the backroom staff, Moses Humphrey, wishing you a beautiful day. Bye for now.
Tomorrow is public holiday.